Hi, I'm Enchanting Nubianette. Welcome back. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. In 2025, as you know, the housing crisis isn't just a headline, it's the reality of tens of thousands of Americans. And for some people, sadly, the only roof they can find is made of corrugated metal and concrete. And that is not even an apartment, not even a hotel room, but a storage unit. However, it's illegal and it can be very dangerous, but the reality is it is happening all over the United States, especially in large cities. As we know, many people have utilized storage units, because they had a lot of items they needed to downsize. And that's when it became popular. I would say I started seeing them more than 5 years ago. But now, according to the recent survey, 1 in 5 Americans have slept in a storage unit, and about 36% have stayed in one due to homelessness. So that's not the biggest issue, everyone. The fact is that it's a national emergency. So it's not just a few people at all. The numbers are increasing every single month. People are using hot plates, running extension cords, and trying to survive in spaces designed for boxes, not bodies. I am not one to blame them at all. I know it's not, their fault. It is the fault of the economy and these businesses and all of these CEOs, business owners who are increasing the prices of every single thing we are using in order to live. I made a video recently regarding the necessities, electricity, gas, having to turn on the AC during the hot months. Of course, food. And, if you have, of course, children, you need to have extra items for them. You even need to have, some health insurance, for example. All of these things are necessities. So, what's changing? And now, when I talk about surveillance and crackdowns, because so many people, as you know, are online, they're posting to get increased amount of subscribers and views. And yes, that helps to put money in their pocket as a content creator, that they are recording, they're posting their experience, so we all can see what the reality is for the people and also for them to earn an income. However, storage facilities are now stepping up on their monitoring game. So we're talking about some storage units now having 24-hour surveillance cameras, even nighttime walkthroughs by staff. Previously that wasn't the case. And I do know from looking at many people's posts, most storage units, you need to use a code to get in and out. You need to definitely be out of the storage unit by even 10 p.m. You definitely cannot sleep with the storage unit door even cracked. You have to pull it all the way down, make sure it's fastened so that no one knows that you're in there. So there's alerts from regular renters who notice unusual activity. And then when someone is caught living inside because they're either posting online or they have slipped up and forgot to, use a code when they're leaving, or they may be playing music and trying to get back in the facility after hours, they get evicted. That creates a huge problem. And there's no warning, there's no grace period for them at this point. It's just out. That's a huge crisis. And facilities, for example, like Atlantic Self Storage, say that they respond immediately and they try to connect people with community resources. But let's be real, those resources are stretched thin. underfunded, and often inaccessible to the very people who need them the most. And with all of these, funding cuts, a lot of people are having to, you know, some people are actually having to, live in these storage units. Or some people are even have to, live in their cars, as we know. And it's really hard for them because even if you were to go to like a huge parking lot for like a Costco or Walmart, if you're just sitting there, you're not patronizing, when you're not buying anything and you're just trying to, park there, you're going to be approached by police and even by the business owners, and you're going to be ordered to move. So, why do people even risk this anyway? You know, we know that people aren't living in storage units because they want to. It's like the last type of survival that they can utilize. We know that rent is out of reach because even, like I mentioned, studio apartments are even going for like $1,900 in the urban areas. One bedrooms are usually about $2,200 to $2,300 per month. Shelters for most of the people are viewed as unsafe, and many times they are filled to capacity. And if you don't get there in a certain amount of time, you're going to lose your space. It's very hard for people, especially, many people don't even like living amongst other people. They rather, live in an area, even though it may not be safe, but it's what they can call their own. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, who are fleeing domestic violence situations, having to live with someone who is harming you, someone who's assaulting you, someone who has an extreme anger problem, and you don't know what is going to happen to you every minute of the day is very stressful in itself. Many people, again, are living with or dealing with mental health issues or mental health disability. And there are people who are even working full time, as I have mentioned before. There are people who have jobs, there are people who have partners. They're both working and they still cannot afford housing. It's a shame. It's horrible. Especially people if you have children. That's even more stressful because children need stability. It takes a lot, when children are moving from place to place. It causes a lot of havoc on their mindset and even to thrive when they're in school. They're not able to focus. They're not able to have a good night's sleep. But however, it is survival, plain and simple. So again, what happens when these crackdowns increase? Because the more people are posting that they're living in storage units, the numbers are increasing and people are living in storage units, whether they're post or not. Their surveillance are tightening and people will be forced out. The question is, where will they go then? This is what is likely that will happen, unfortunately. More people will begin sleeping in cars if they don't have a vehicle, because again, many, unfortunately, a lot of people are not able to stay in their vehicles if they're trying to stay on a lot or a parking lot, for example. Many people will have to live in the parks or live in abandoned buildings. There's again increased strain on shelters and even social services. As we know, with this administration, those people who are healthy and who are living in Section 8, those social services are being cut in 2 years. As far as that, as I'm concerned, they're straining the taxpayers. We shouldn't have to pay for anyone who's able-bodied, who's able to go out and work. So I'm all for it. But of course, people who are disabled, whether physically, mentally, for example, they definitely still need to have help. There's going to be a greater visibility of homelessness, especially in urban areas. The big cities, we're going to see it even more, just like we're seeing it right now. And unfortunately, everyone, there's going to be even more arrest, because if you're living on the street, you can be arrested for that. Unfortunately, that's something that I don't agree with at all, especially if they're just minding their own business and not causing harm to anyone. They're just trying to make it through the day, day to day. So many people are going to get more citations for trespassing and loitering. Even the parks, people are being pushed out of those when there's no place for them to live or they can't afford to live anywhere else. So we can't ignore the trauma of other people. Being people being kicked out of the only space that they've managed to claim, especially if it's in the middle of the night and there's nowhere to go. That's a crisis. It's very much panic mode. And it's not just about losing shelter, it's also about losing their dignity. Many people have to think about, my goodness, I am adult and I'm not able to care for myself. I'm not able to be fully independent. That they have to get help from other sources because their job isn't paying sufficiently. That's a huge stressor. So real talk, we can't keep treating these symptoms and ignoring, these problems. If we want to stop people from living in storage units, well, I don't want to stop people from living in storage people, but we know um, business owners and other people in, you know, administration, for example, they want to prevent this. We need to have more affordable housing initiatives, definitely more expansion when it comes to shelter capacity. Yeah, we have a lot of real estate that is left empty. Those places can be created into shelters where people with trauma can also get health care. They can get services, social services, counseling, therapists. They can get mental health care, help for their addiction, support as well. They also need to have people who can give them their medication. Now, I know that everyone has human rights. However, when someone needs medication, they're not taking it and it causes a havoc and harm to other people. That person needs to have their medication given to them. They need to be able to take it so they can actually live in these shelters. And we need to have policy reform that prioritizes housing, which is a basic human right. Every single person, in my opinion, need to have housing, they need to have medical insurance, and they need to have food. Because surveillance without solutions is another form of punishment. So, the higher ups, the people who make the decisions, there's enough real estate, enough land for every single person to be housed in this country, in this rich country. So, what are your thoughts on this topic, everyone? Because living in a storage unit isn't a lifestyle at all. It's a last resort for a growing amount of people, thousands of people. And when the system starts kicking people out without offering a way forward, they're not solving any homelessness. They're just trying to hide it. For example, what is happening in Washington, D.C., where you see, a lot of the law enforcement breaking down the tents and people are being moved out of the area near the White House. Where are they going? I know that it's stated that the government will give them shelter. Where are they now? And how do we stop people from even living in storage units? But the question is, why are they living there in the first place? I have no qualms about where people live because they are trying to live normally and create a new normal for themselves, trying to adjust to this world. So the question is, everyone, who is going to help these people? The people who have resources, how are they going to use their funds in order to provide more resources for them? So everyone, we need to make sure that we share this story, so that it doesn't just stay in the wayside. Thank you for watching, and please leave a comment below. What do you think about the situation, this growing crisis, which also would lead to more homelessness in the near future? Please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Stay safe wherever you are, and have your head on a swivel. Thanks again.